And
Well, can I ask you this?
yeah,
Because I've always like, I mean, this is a really hard question to be able to answer, but like, what really went through your mind when the doctor told you that you only had like a year to live? Can you describe that? Like, can you really flash back and like,
yeah.
I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even imagine.
So, well, before I get into that, this is one thing I was going to tell you is that the first time that I ended up in the hospital, and I was so weak, man. I couldn't walk.
Right.
When my mom pulled up to the hospital, they had to get the wheelchair to get me in there. And man, I was really bad off, man. And when I finally went, I waited in the emergency room for like 2 hours before I even went to the back. I'm in there puking blood, and I mean, I looked horrible. And when I finally went to the back, the doctor comes in. And the doctor came in and he goes, "Hey, man, I don't. You have a lot of stuff wrong with you, and I don't know if we're gonna be able to save your life." And you always think that when you get in that situation, that like I don't know. I guess we have these like preconceived ideas of what it's going to be like when you get there. And I
Right.
can honestly tell you that I didn't have any feeling. Um
Really?
yeah, no, man. It was like
Was it a numb
it was a
type of?
very strange feeling, man. It was kind of like in that moment I went, "Okay, this is probably it." And I just accepted it. There wasn't any thought process behind it. I knew in that moment when the doctor said that, like, I'm probably not gonna make it through this. And the only thing that went through my mind in that moment was I really did it to myself. I drank myself to death. Like I actually like
I could
I
imagine.
did it. Like, and I wasn't scared. Um I was scared in general, but it's not like when the doctor said that, like I got really afraid. It was kind of like it was just I had this sense of calm. It was very strange, and I just
Almost like it
accepted.
was over. Was it almost like a feeling of like this chaos is finally over with?
Yep, yep, and I accepted it. And to be honest with you, man, it was almost peaceful because I knew I
Wow.
didn't have to deal with it, with the stress, the pain, the guilt, the shame, just everything. It was like this is all over with now, and I finally don't have to deal with that anymore. Um,
That is deep.
It,
That
I,
is
and that's honestly the what happened. But to your other question, uh, when the doctor told me that I had a year left to live, um, I'll never forget that day, um, for as long as I live, because my wife had, I was in the hospital in Columbia. My wife left work early that day to come see me, and I didn't realize I was getting out of the hospital that day.
right.
I've been in the hospital at this point for like 2.5 weeks, and I was in really bad shape, man. I thought I was gonna be in there for even longer. And
Right.
that night, I had refused the pain medication because I was hallucinating off of it, and that my wife had just got there to see me, and we were just sitting there talking, and the hospitalist came in, and she came in, she started talking to my wife and I, and she said, "I see that you refused the Dilaudid last night." And I said, "I did. I was starting to see stuff, and I just don't want that anymore." And she said, "Well, since you refused it, we're gonna go ahead and let you go home." And I was like, really taken back. I was like, "What?" She goes, "We're gonna let you go home today." So I had this like sense of like happiness all of a sudden. So I'm like excited because I'm getting out of the hospital. I get to go home. Because as
Right.
well as as I do, being in the hospital is not fun.
It sucked.
Yes, it's not fun.
Sucked.
So I'm excited. I'm getting to go home, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I must be doing better because they're gonna let me go home. And
Right.
then she just dropped it on my wife and I and said, "We want you need to go ahead and go home, and I want you to go ahead and leave now because I want you to go home and spend time with your family because time is of the essence for you right now." And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" And she said, and my wife's sitting right there with us, and she said, I don't think that you're gonna be alive this time next year." And man, I was like really surprised. That was not what I was expecting to hear. And
No.
at this point, I still didn't even know I had cirrhosis. And that's when she dropped the bombshell on me and said, "You have cirrhosis of the liver, and blood clot." No, actually, they didn't know I had blood clots at that point. She started naming off all this other stuff. Your pancreas is shot. Your gallbladder's distended. I had a side
That's
during that period of time too. And she just said, "I do not think you'll be alive for the holiday season next year." And
wow.
that my wife and I both started crying when she said that. And I think the feeling that I felt more than anything else was guilt. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
because I did this to myself, man.
right,
Like there was nobody else to blame. It's not like they told me I had cancer and it just happened, like people get cancer. They didn't do anything to get it, just
right,
a cell splits off the wrong way and next thing you know you've got a tumor. But this was
right.
something of my own volition, I created this problem. And I think more than anything else, man, I had this overwhelming feel of guilt, and I felt like, man, I felt really bad for my wife and for my children more than anything else. Like
Right.
I'm leaving them and I'm leaving my wife, and now she's gonna have to raise my kids on their own, and all of these thoughts started coming in my head. That I'm thinking, now my kids have to grow up without a dad. I did this to them. It's gonna affect their entire life because I couldn't put the bottle down. My wife is gonna have to take on twice as much work now because I couldn't put the bottle down. I'm gonna stress all of them out because I couldn't stop because I was so selfish. And those are the thoughts that just kept going through my mind of guilt, shame, and remorse for what I had done, man. I
Listen up, people. Listen up, guys. Listen to all the viewers, watching right now. Listen up. This is some powerful stuff, man. This is some powerful stuff. Because you know what, man? I'm right around the corner from that. There's so many people out there that are watching this video right now that are right around the corner
yeah,
from that, being in that position, man.
yeah,
Um, that is some powerful stuff. And I think that that's why your story is so captivating, is because you really did. You went to the edge of the abyss when it comes to alcoholism, man. You went to the edge. You were right there at the, right there where death is, and you came back from it. And I think that that's why when people hear your story, it's just so captivating because there's no BS. I mean, this is as real as it gets when it comes to alcoholism. This is
yeah,
where it will lead you to. You
yeah.
know what I mean?